Everyone says the 1970s killed the muscle car. Insurance companies strangled them. Emissions regulations choked their engines. Safety mandates added weight. And fuel crises made big blocks politically toxic. But before performance died completely, Detroit built one final generation of machines so brutally fast, they became legends. Today, we're counting down 15 brutally fast muscle cars made in the 1970s. Machines that proved American performance refused to die quietly. From half-second 0 to 60 times to 13-second quarter miles. These weren't compromises. They were war cries. This is the story of muscle cars that fought back against the inevitable. Number 15, 1979, Chevrolet Camaro Z28. The 1979 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 survived at the absolute end of the 70s, when most performance cars had surrendered to emissions regulations and fuel economy mandates. By 1979, genuine muscle seemed impossible. Engines were strangled by catalytic converters, compression ratios had dropped to avoid detonation on unleaded fuel, and horsepower numbers looked pathetic compared to a decade earlier. But the Z28 refused to quit, offering the last gasps of traditional American V8 performance. The 350 cubic inch V8 produced between 175 and 190 horsepower under net ratings depending on configuration, numbers that looked terrible but represented decent power for the late 70s. Chevrolet extracted every possible horsepower from the small block, despite emissions equipment that strangled airflow and lower compression that limited efficiency. The Z28 could hit 60 miles per hour in around 7.8 seconds, making it one of the fastest American cars you could buy in 1979 when most vehicles were genuinely slow. The engine featured a 4-barrel carburetor that provided adequate fuel delivery, despite the restrictive emissions equipment required for 1979 certification. The catalytic converter and air pump system added weight and complexity while reducing power output. But Chevrolet's engineers managed to maintain acceptable performance through careful tuning and calibration. The compression ratio had dropped to around 8.2 to 1, dramatically lower than the 11 to 1 ratios common in the muscle car era, limiting thermal efficiency but allowing the engine to run on unleaded regular gasoline. The camshaft profile was conservative to maintain smooth idle quality and drivability while meeting increasingly strict emission standards that penalized aggressive valve timing. The exhaust system featured mandrel bent pipes and reasonably free-flowing mufflers that helped maintain what little power the engine could produce despite the catalytic converter's restrictive nature. The ignition system used high-energy electronic components that provided reliable spark and allowed precise timing control necessary for emissions, compliance, and fuel economy optimization. The fuel economy was mediocre by modern standards, typically returning around 15 to 18 miles per gallon in mixed driving, but acceptable for a performance car in an era obsessed with efficiency. The transmission options included a 4-speed manual or 3-speed automatic, with the manual providing better performance and driver engagement, while the automatic offered easier daily driving. The final drive ratio was carefully chosen to balance acceleration performance with highway fuel economy and noise levels, typically around 3.4 2 to 1 for the automatic. The power delivery was smooth and linear rather than explosive, with the engine producing its peak torque at relatively low RPM and maintaining reasonable power through the mid-range. The throttle response was adequate but not instant, due to the large carburetor ventures and emissions equipment that created slight delays between pedal input and power delivery. The engine's sound was subdued compared to earlier muscle car V8s, with restrictive exhaust systems and sound-deadening materials, creating a more civilized character appropriate for late 70s expectations. The reliability was generally good with proper maintenance, as Chevrolet had decades of experience with small-block V8 architecture and understood how to build durable engines despite emissions equipment complications. The Z28 featured aggressive styling with functional hood scoops, bold graphics, and appearance packages that tried to create visual excitement despite modest performance. The second-generation Camaro body remained handsome, and Chevrolet's designers made the most of it with stripes, spoilers, and details that suggested speed. The interior was typical late 70s GM, with comfortable seats and adequate instrumentation. The Z28 wasn't fast by muscle car standards, but it kept performance alive when everything else had given up. Number 14, 1978, Dodge Lil Red Express truck. The 1978 Dodge Lil Red Express truck was genuinely bizarre. A pickup truck with performance equipment that made it the fastest American vehicle you could buy that year. While car manufacturers struggled with emissions regulations, trucks faced lighter restrictions, allowing Dodge to build something genuinely quick when cars were strangled by catalytic converters. The Lil Red Express proved that performance could survive if you were willing to accept unconventional packaging. The 360 cubic inch V8 produced 225 horsepower, strong power for 1978 delivered through dual exhaust with vertical stacks behind the cab. The engine featured a 4-barrel carburetor and tuning that extracted maximum performance despite the era's restrictions. The Lil Red Express could hit 60 miles per hour in around 6.5 seconds. Genuinely quick performance that embarrassed most sports cars available that year. The vertical chrome exhaust stacks weren't just for show. They were functional components that reduced back pressure and improved exhaust flow, contributing measurably to the truck's strong performance. The engine benefited from truck emissions exemptions that allowed Dodge to avoid installing catalytic converters, giving the 360 significantly less restrictive exhaust routing than contemporary passenger cars faced. The 4-barrel carburetor was a thermoquad unit that provided excellent fuel atomization and throttle response, delivering crisp acceleration when the driver buried the pedal. The compression ratio was higher than contemporary passenger car engines, allowing the 360 to extract more power from each combustion cycle, despite running on unleaded regular gasoline. The camshaft profile was more aggressive than typical truck applications, featuring increased duration and lift that biased power delivery toward the upper RPM range where performance mattered most. The ignition system used Chrysler's electronic setup that provided reliable spark and allowed precise timing control throughout the engine's operating range. The intake manifold was a dual-plane aluminum casting that balanced low-end torque with high RPM breathing, creating a broad power band that made the Lil Red Express flexible and responsive across all driving conditions. The cooling system was robust, with a large radiator and engine-driven fan that ensured the 360 maintained proper operating temperatures even during sustained high-speed driving or hot weather operation. The oil pan held adequate capacity to ensure proper lubrication during hard acceleration when oil would slosh toward the rear of the engine. The transmission was Chrysler's TorqueFlite Automatic, a legendary 3-speed unit known for durability and positive shifts that could handle the 360's torque without slipping or hesitation. The rear axle featured a limited slip differential with aggressive gearing around 3.55 to 1 that prioritized acceleration over fuel economy, making the Lil Red Express quick off the line. The suspension was stiffened compared to standard pickups, with heavier springs and performance-oriented shock absorbers that reduced body roll and improved handling, despite the truck's inherently high center of gravity. The braking system featured front discs and rear drums that provided adequate stopping power for the era, though bringing the relatively heavy truck to a halt from high speeds required firm pedal pressure and advanced planning. The fuel tank capacity was substantial at around 19 gallons, necessary because the Lil Red Express consumed fuel at rates that reflected its performance orientation rather than economy concerns. The quarter-mile performance was consistently in the high 15 to low 16-second range, with trap speeds around 85 miles per hour, making the Lil Red Express genuinely competitive with sports cars costing significantly more money. The styling was deliberately outrageous with bright red paint, gold striping, chrome exhaust stacks, and oak bed slats that made the Lil Red Express impossible to miss. Dodge marketed it aggressively as the fastest American vehicle, and magazine tests confirmed the claim. The truck proved that performance hadn't died. It had just migrated to unexpected places. The Lil Red Express became a cult classic, representing Dodge's refusal to completely surrender performance even at the end of the 70s. Number 13, 1973, Pontiac Trans Am, Super Duty 455. The 1973 Pontiac Trans Am Super Duty 455 arrived as one of the last true muscle cars before emissions regulations killed traditional performance. Pontiac developed the SD455 specifically to circumvent increasingly restrictive emissions standards, creating an engine that could pass certification while delivering genuine muscle car power. Only 295 Trans Ams received the SD455, making them instantly legendary. The 455 cubic inch SD V8 produced 310 horsepower under net ratings, modest numbers that disguised genuine performance. The SD engine featured round port cylinder heads, a hot camshaft, and free-flowing exhaust that delivered strong power throughout the RPM range. The Trans Am SD could complete quarter miles in around 13.9 seconds, performance that matched muscle cars from the golden era, despite the hostile regulatory environment. The Trans Am featured Pontiac's distinctive styling with the famous screaming chicken hood decal, functional shaker hood scoop, and aggressive proportions that made it look fast standing still. The SD455 cars received special badging and equipment that distinguished them from standard Trans Ams. These were instantly collectible when new and remain highly valuable today because they represent Pontiac's final defiant gesture before emissions regulations won. Number 12. 1971 Chevrolet Camaro Z28. The 1971 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 featured the legendary LT1 engine that delivered genuine small block performance when big blocks were dying. Chevrolet designed the 350 cubic inch LT1 specifically for the Z28, creating a high-revving small block that emphasized throttle response and handling over brute torque. The combination proved you could have genuinely quick performance without massive displacement. The LT1 produced 330 horsepower, strong output from a small block delivered through sophisticated engineering. The engine featured a solid lifter camshaft, high compression, and breathing that allowed it to rev freely to 6,000 RPM. The Z28 could hit 60 miles per hour in around 6 seconds. Quick performance that came from revving the engine rather than relying on displacement. The handling was exceptional, thanks to upgraded suspension and the small block's lighter weight compared to big block competitors. The compression ratio was 11:1, exceptionally high for the era, and requiring premium fuel to avoid detonation, but delivering thermal efficiency that extracted maximum power from the displacement. The solid lifter camshaft required periodic valve adjustments to maintain proper clearances, but it allowed aggressive profiles with high lift and duration that hydraulic lifters couldn't match. The cylinder heads featured large valves and efficient port designs that flowed air extremely well, allowing the LT1 to breathe deeply at high RPM when most engines were gasping for air. The intake manifold was an aluminum dual-plane design that balanced low-end torque with high RPM breathing, creating a power band that remained strong from 3,000 RPM all the way to redline. The exhaust manifolds were cast iron units that flowed adequately, feeding into a dual exhaust system with performance mufflers that created the distinctive small-block Chevrolet sound. The ignition system was a breaker point design typical for 1971, requiring periodic maintenance, but providing reliable spark when properly adjusted and maintained. The carburetor was a Holley 4-barrel unit mounted on an aluminum intake, delivering precise fuel metering and instant throttle response that made the LT1 feel eager and alive. The oil pan was baffled to prevent oil starvation during hard cornering and sustained high RPM operation, ensuring proper lubrication even when driven aggressively on winding roads. The cooling system featured a large radiator and shrouded fan that maintained proper operating temperatures even during spirited driving and hot weather conditions. The redline was set at 6,500 RPM, and the engine pulled strongly all the way to that limit without the power falling off prematurely like displacement-dependent big blocks. The fuel economy was surprisingly reasonable for a performance engine, typically returning 15 to 18 miles per gallon in mixed driving when driven moderately. The quarter-mile times consistently fell into the high 14-second range, with trap speeds around 95 miles per hour, proving the LT1's high revving character translated into genuine straight-line performance. The suspension featured front and rear anti-roll bars, heavy-duty springs, and performance shock absorbers that reduced body roll and kept the tires firmly planted during aggressive cornering. The front-to-rear weight distribution was nearly perfect at around 51% front and 49% rear, creating balanced handling characteristics that rewarded skilled drivers. The steering was quick and responsive with good feedback, allowing precise placement on winding roads and creating a driving experience that felt more European sports car than American muscle car. The Z28 looked aggressive with functional hood scoops, bold striping, and proportions that emphasized its performance mission. The second-generation Camaro body was handsome, and the Z28 made the most of it. The LT1's high-revving character made the Z28 feel sporty and engaging rather than brutish. This was thinking person's muscle, sophisticated rather than crude. Number 11, 1971 Dodge Super Bee 446-pack. The 1971 Dodge Super Bee 446-pack represented Mopar muscle at its most brutal and affordable. The Super Bee had always been the working man's muscle car, stripped of luxury to deliver maximum performance for minimum money. The 446-pack engine, with its triple two-barrel carburetors, delivered insane mid-range punch that made the Super Bee genuinely quick despite its budget positioning. The 440 cubic inch V8 with 6-pack carburation produced 385 horsepower. Strong power delivered through an induction system that provided instant throttle response. The 3 two-barrel carburetors opened progressively, giving smooth operation during light throttle cruising, but violent acceleration when you buried the pedal. The Super Bee could complete quarter miles in around 14.2 seconds, performance that embarrassed more expensive muscle cars. The Super Bee's styling was bold and aggressive, with distinctive graphics, and the Cartoon Bee logo that made it instantly recognizable. Dodge positioned it as affordable performance, and it delivered on that promise. The 6-pack engine's throttle response made the Super Bee feel faster than its number suggested, with brutal mid-range acceleration that slammed you back in the seat. This was Mopar muscle at its purest: straightforward, affordable, and genuinely quick. Number 10, 1971 Plymouth GTX 46-pack. The 1971 Plymouth GTX 446-pack delivered the same triple carburetor violence as the Super Bee, but wrapped in slightly more upscale packaging. The GTX had always been Plymouth's gentleman's muscle car, more refined than the Roadrunner, more serious than the stripped-down Super Bee. The 6-pack engine made it genuinely brutal, despite the upscale positioning. The 440 cubic inch V8 with 6-pack carburation produced 385 horsepower, the same output as the Super Bee's engine delivered through identical triple two-barrel carburetor setup. The GTX could complete quarter miles in around 14.1 seconds, slightly quicker than the Super Bee thanks to minor equipment differences. The 6-pack's instant throttle response and violent mid-range acceleration made the GTX feel genuinely fast. The 3 Holley two-barrel carburetors operated sequentially, with the center carburetor providing fuel during normal driving, while the outboard carburetors opened only under heavy throttle, creating a progressive power delivery that was smooth at low speeds, but explosive when you demanded full acceleration. The induction system sat beneath a functional air grabber hood that used vacuum-operated doors to feed cold outside air directly to the carburetors, improving power output by reducing intake air temperature. The engine produced over 480 pound-feet of torque, massive low-end grunt that made the GTX feel brutally quick from any engine speed without needing to downshift or wait for the engine to spool up. The exhaust system featured cast-iron manifolds feeding into dual exhausts, with performance mufflers that created the distinctive Mopar rumble, a deep, aggressive sound that was instantly recognizable and utterly menacing. The compression ratio was 10.3 to 1, high enough to extract serious power, but conservative enough to run on premium pump gas without constant detonation problems. The ignition system was a dual-point distributor design that provided reliable spark and allowed the engine to rev cleanly through its entire operating range without missing or hesitating. The oil pan held adequate capacity to ensure proper lubrication during hard acceleration when oil would slosh rearward, protecting the engine's internal components during sustained aggressive driving. The cooling system featured a large capacity radiator with heavy-duty fan and shroud that maintained proper operating temperatures, even during extended high-speed operation in hot summer conditions. The transmission options included the 4-speed manual with pistol grip shifter, or Torque Flight 3-speed automatic, both robust enough to handle the 440's substantial torque without slipping or braking. The trap speeds at the end of quarter-mile runs typically exceeded 98 miles per hour, demonstrating that the GTX didn't just accelerate hard initially, but maintained strong power through higher speeds, where aerodynamic drag became significant. The GTX featured more refined styling than the Super B, with subtle graphics and upscale trim that suggested maturity rather than youthful aggression. Plymouth positioned it for buyers who wanted muscle car performance without the stripped-down character of cheaper models. The six-pack engine's distinctive sound, 3 carburetors gulping air under full throttle, made the GTX orally distinctive. This was refined brutality, proving muscle cars could be civilized without becoming soft. Number 9. 1970 AMC Rebel Machine. The 1970 AMC Rebel Machine shocked everyone who dismissed AMC as an economy car manufacturer. American Motors had never been serious players in performance, but the Rebel Machine proved they could build genuinely quick muscle cars when motivated. The machine arrived with outrageous styling and legitimate performance that competed directly with Detroit's Big Three. The 390 cubic inch V8 produced 340 horsepower, serious power delivered through AMC's sturdiest components. The machine featured a Ram air hood scoop, heavy-duty suspension, and aggressive gearing that made it genuinely quick. Quarter-mile times hovered around 14.4 seconds, performance that matched many more famous muscle cars. The machine proved AMC could compete when they tried. The styling was deliberately outrageous with red, white, and blue paint, enormous graphics, and visual drama that made the machine impossible to miss. AMC later offered subdued colors for buyers who found the patriotic scheme too bold. The machine represented AMC's brief moment trying to compete in the muscle car wars, proving that even small manufacturers could build genuinely quick cars when properly motivated. Number 8. 1970 Dodge Charger RTHEMI. The 1970 Dodge Charger RTHEMI combined iconic Mopar styling with legendary HEMI power, creating one of the most brutal muscle cars ever built. The Charger's distinctive appearance made it instantly recognizable, and the HEMI engine made it genuinely terrifying. This was Mopar muscle at its absolute peak, beautiful, brutal, and utterly uncompromising. The 426 cubic inch Hemi V8 produced 425 horsepower, massive power delivered through the legendary engine that defined Mopar performance. The Hemi featured hemispherical combustion chambers that breathed efficiently and produced strong power throughout the RPM range. The Charger could hit 60 miles per hour in around 5.7 seconds, brutally quick acceleration that overwhelmed tires and shocked passengers. The Charger's styling was aggressive and distinctive, with hidden headlights, flying buttress roof, and proportions that looked fast, standing still. The Hemi cars received special badging and functional hood scoops that distinguished them from lesser Chargers. The sound of the Hemi, deep, menacing, utterly distinctive, made Charger RT Hemis orally unforgettable. These are among the most valuable muscle cars today because they combined iconic styling with legendary performance. Number 7. 1970 Ford Torino Cobra 429 Super Cobra Jet. The 1970 Ford Torino Cobra 429 Super Cobra Jet represented Ford's fastest muscle car of the era, delivering performance that shocked even Ford enthusiasts. While Ford is often overlooked in muscle car discussions, the Torino Cobra proved the Blue Oval could build genuinely brutal machines when properly motivated. The Super Cobra jet engine delivered violence that competed with anything Chevrolet or Chrysler offered. The 429 cubic inch V8 with Super Cobra jet equipment produced 375 horsepower, strong power delivered through an engine designed for NASCAR competition. The SCJ featured forged internals, aggressive camshaft, and breathing that allowed sustained high RPM operation. The Torino Cobra could complete quarter miles in around 13.99 seconds, performance that placed it among the quickest muscle cars of 1970. The Torino's styling was aggressive with functional hood scoops, bold graphics, and proportions that emphasized muscle. Ford positioned the Cobra as its ultimate performance intermediate, and it delivered on that promise. The SCJ engine's brutal torque and distinctive Ford V8 sound made the Torino Cobra genuinely exciting to drive. These are undervalued today compared to GM and Mopar muscle, but they offered equivalent performance. Number 6. 1970 Pontiac GTO Judge Ram Air 4. The 1970 Pontiac GTO Judge Ram Air 4 delivered high-revving violence that shocked drivers accustomed to torque-heavy muscle cars. While most muscle engines emphasized low RPM grunt, the Ram Air 4 was designed to rev, producing peak power at 5,500 RPM when most competitors were already breathless. The combination created a muscle car with sports car character. The 400 cubic inch V8 with Ram Air 4 equipment produced 370 horsepower, strong output delivered through sophisticated engineering. The Ram Air 4 featured round port cylinder heads, hot camshaft, and free-flowing induction that allowed it to breathe at high RPM. The Judge could complete quarter miles in around 14 seconds, quick performance that came from keeping the engine spinning rather than relying on displacement. The high-revving character made the Judge feel sporty and engaging. The Judge's styling was outrageous with wild graphics, bright colors, and the distinctive rear spoiler that made it instantly recognizable. Pontiac positioned the Judge as their ultimate GTO, and the Ram Air 4 made it genuinely special. The engine's willingness to rev and strong top-end power created a muscle car that rewarded aggressive driving. The Judge represented Pontiac performance at its most uncompromising. Number 5, 1970, Oldsmobile 442W30. The 1970 Oldsmobile 442W30 proved that luxury divisions could build genuinely brutal muscle cars when properly motivated. The W30 package combined Oldsmobile's biggest engine with weight-saving measures and performance equipment that created something genuinely quick. The lightweight components and strong engine made the W30 a sleeper that shocked unsuspecting competitors. The 455 cubic inch V8 produced 370 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque, massive output that made the W30 genuinely brutal. The W30 package included aluminum intake manifold, lightweight components, and functional hood scoops that fed cold air to the engine. Quarter-mile times hovered around 14 seconds, quick performance that came from strong torque and reduced weight. The W30 felt faster than its numbers suggested thanks to brutal low-end grunt. The 442's styling was more restrained than competitors with subtle badging and refined appearance that disguised performance. Oldsmobile positioned it for mature buyers who wanted muscle without youthful excess. The W30's sleeper character made it devastating in street racing, where competitors dismissed Oldsmobiles as luxury cars. This was gentleman's muscle, refined on the surface, brutal underneath. Number 4, 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1. The 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1 became legendary for producing more torque than any other muscle car. 510 pound-feet from the 455 cubic inch V8. That massive torque made the GSX feel devastatingly quick, despite horsepower ratings that didn't match the most powerful competitors. The Stage 1 proved that torque mattered as much as peak horsepower for real-world performance. The 455 cubic inch V8 with Stage 1 equipment produced 360 horsepower, strong output that understated the engine's genuine capability. The Stage 1 featured aggressive camshaft, improved breathing, and tuning that delivered massive torque from idle to redline. The GSX could complete quarter miles in around 13.7 seconds. Quick performance that came from overwhelming torque that made the rear tires smoke at will. The GSX featured distinctive styling with bold graphics, functional scoops, and colors that made it visually striking. Buick built fewer than 700 GSX models, making them instantly rare and collectible. The Stage 1's character, smooth delivery, massive torque, refined operation, made it feel more sophisticated than crude muscle from other brands. This was luxury muscle, proving Buick could build genuinely quick cars without sacrificing refinement. Number 3, 1970 Dodge Challenger RT-HEMI. The 1970 Dodge Challenger RT-HEMI combined Chrysler's beautiful E-body platform with legendary HEMI power, creating one of the most iconic muscle cars ever built. The Challenger arrived late to the pony car wars, but it made an impact with stunning styling and brutal performance. The HEMI option made it genuinely terrifying. The 426 cubic inch Hemi V8 produced 425 horsepower, massive power delivered through the legendary engine that defined Mopar performance. The Hemi's hemispherical combustion chambers breathed efficiently and produced strong power throughout the RPM range. The Challenger could hit 60 miles per hour in around 5.8 seconds. Brutally quick acceleration that made it one of the fastest muscle cars of 1970. The Challenger's styling was beautiful and aggressive with long hood, short deck, and proportions that looked perfect from every angle. The Hemi cars received functional shaker hood scoops that protruded through the hood and moved with the engine. The sound of the Hemi, deep, menacing, utterly distinctive, made Challenger RT Hemis orally unforgettable. These are among the most valuable muscle cars today, representing Mopar styling and performance at absolute peak. Number 2, 1970, Plymouth Hemi Cuda. The 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda takes second position because it combined compact e-body dimensions with legendary Hemi power in a package that defined muscle car excess. While the Challenger was slightly larger and more civilized, the Cuda was smaller, lighter, and more aggressive. The HEMI option created something genuinely violent. The 426 cubic inch Hemi V8 produced 425 horsepower in a car that weighed less than 3,500 pounds. That power-to-weight ratio made the Hemi Cuda genuinely brutal, with quarter-mile times around 13.5 seconds and trap speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. The Hemi's massive torque overwhelmed the rear tires at will, making traction the limiting factor rather than power. The Cuda's styling was aggressive with distinctive grille, bold graphics, and proportions that emphasized muscle. Plymouth offered outrageous colors and appearance packages that made Hemi Cudas visually striking. The shaker hood scoop became the Cuda's visual trademark, moving with the engine and announcing Hemi power. Only 652 Hemi Cudas were built for 1970, making them instantly rare. Today, they're among the most valuable muscle cars, with pristine examples commanding seven-figure prices. The Hemi Cuda represented Mopar performance at its most uncompromising, brutal, beautiful, and utterly excessive. Number 1, 1970, Chevrolet Chevelle SS454 LS6. The 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS454 LS6 takes the top position as the most brutally fast muscle car of the 70s because it delivered the highest factory horsepower rating ever, 450 horses from 454 cubic inches of displacement. This was General Motors at absolute peak performance, building an engine so powerful it would never be repeated. The LS6 represented muscle car philosophy taken to its logical extreme. The 454 cubic inch LS6 V8 produced 450 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque, staggering output that made the Chevelle genuinely violent. Chevrolet engineered the LS6 with forged internals, aggressive camshaft, and breathing that allowed sustained high RPM operation. The LS6 featured 11-to-1 compression, rectangular port cylinder heads, and a massive Holley carburetor that delivered instant throttle response and brutal acceleration throughout the RPM range. Performance was genuinely shocking. The Chevelle SS LS6 could hit 60 miles per hour in around 5.4 seconds, making it one of the quickest muscle cars ever built. Quarter-mile times consistently fell into the high 13-second range, with trap speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Magazine tests confirmed the LS6's brutal performance, with some achieving even quicker times under ideal conditions. The LS6 delivered its power with smooth, linear surge that built relentlessly as RPMs climbed. The Chevelle's styling was purposeful and aggressive with functional hood scoops, bold SS badging, and proportions that emphasized muscle. Chevrolet offered the LS6 only for 1970, recognizing that insurance companies and emissions regulations would kill such extreme performance. Only 4,975 LS6 Chevelle were built, making them instantly collectible. The combination of highest factory horsepower rating, genuine performance, and one-year-only availability made the LS6 Chevelle the ultimate muscle car. The sound of the LS6 at full throttle, deep, menacing roar mixed with intake howl, remains unforgettable for anyone who experienced it. The brutal acceleration, the way it overwhelmed rear tires, the violence of 450 horsepower in a mid-size body. The LS6 Chevelle represented everything muscle cars were supposed to be. Today, LS6 Chevelles are among the most valuable muscle cars, with pristine examples commanding enormous prices. They represent muscle car performance at absolute peak, the moment before everything changed forever. These 15 brutally fast muscle cars proved that the 1970s wasn't just about decline, it was about defiance. From the LS6 Chevelle's 450 horsepower to the late 70s survivors that kept performance alive, these machines refused to surrender quietly. They fought against insurance companies, emissions regulations, and changing markets, delivering genuine speed when everyone said it was impossible. These weren't compromises. They were war cries from an industry that refused to let performance die. Which of these brutal machines would you choose? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you love stories about muscle cars that fought back, hit that subscribe button for more.